Let me start, Vince, with you. And that is, the Republican Party is putting out two versions of a tax reform plan, neither of which comport to the vision of one Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. What are we to make of it?
We're to make of it that the vision of the president, which is to get the economy moving with cutting taxes for businesses and not in any way hurting the American middle class with a tax increase, seems to be straying away from the point here, that you have both the Senate and the House pursuing pieces of legislation in order to make it fit through the Senate's arduous and weird manipulative budget rules. I think the big issue here is, remember, what options does Senator Mitch McConnell have available to him? He can actually go nuclear here if he wanted to, but he's decided not to. He's been under pressure from the president for some time, get rid of the legislative filibuster, but he's decided not to, which is why we're left with a strange maneuver, a budget maneuver, to force through a tax bill that's going to, in the end, hurt the very people that put President Trump in office, potentially.
Charlie, your thoughts on it? I mean, it seems almost, these, in some ways, particularly the Senate legislation, seems to be the product of true consternation and turmoil within at least the minds of the Senate about whether or not to ever do anything that might even appear to be following the Trump vision and the Trump agenda.
Yeah. Well, you know, my greatest hope from the moment that Donald Trump arrived on the political scene was that Republicans would, maybe they didn't agree with him about everything, but maybe possibly they might learn something from him. They might learn how he sells things, learn how he campaigns, learn something from this guy, because he's got a lot to offer. After all, he beat 18 of them in the primary and then went on to beat the most powerful political figure in the last 25 years in a general election. There's a lot to learn from this guy. And I'm afraid that Republicans in Congress are not learning any of those lessons. Donald Trump, you keep it simple. You simplify the tax code. You lower taxes for everyone. And what we're seeing here is it's getting more and more complicated, more and more complex. It's not simple. Nobody has any idea what is going on here or what this is going to do. But everybody's pretty sure that there are going to be at least some tax hikes in it. That's not the Republican way, and they're going to ruin their brand if they don't wake up and simplify this thing and cut taxes and move on.
And their intention, obviously, would, at least inferentially, we assume, is to hurt President Trump in some way. It's not happening. The national media is taking care of that chore as they viciously and unrelentingly attack him. Let's turn to China, where, Vince, the president actually said, "I don't blame China for the runaway trade deficits of the United States, because our presidents have effectively, these are my words, not his, I'm going to just make it a little more succinct, have been damn fools over the course of decades in which they've allowed the Chinese to run up trillions of dollars in trade surpluses."
This is the same case we saw him make at the UN, which is that you, as world leaders, represent the interests of your countries. It's always your country first. And you saw it today. He goes to China and he says, yeah, if I was in your position, basically, I would do the same thing. I would take advantage of the lax enforcement and of this trade and create a trade deficit for the United States, because that's to the advantage of the Chinese government. And now he's, by suggestion here, by implication, he wants to reverse that. I think what you've seen is that both he and President Xi have been very cordial to one another. China rolled out the red carpet in a way that they never did for President Obama.
Or any other president. I mean,
that's right.
That was unprecedented.
And behind closed doors, the White House is saying that President Obama is being forceful in these negotiations with President Xi, because he sees an imbalance in our trade that needs to be corrected.
Roy Moore, Charlie, Roy Moore. The Washington Post has found 4 women who were willing to go to appear under a headline charging him with behavior unbecoming, at the very least, and in one instance, wrongful behavior toward a young lady. What do you make of it? A man who's 70 years old, has been in the public eye forever, and suddenly the Post found these folks.
I'm always very skeptical of any of these stories like this in a campaign season, But I have to say that the story that woman, the main woman who was named in describing what happened to her, as she said when she was 14 years old, I found it very disturbing, and I found it very believable. So many of the details that she recounted. Maybe Roy Moore is right. Maybe this is the most orchestrated fake news attack that I've ever seen. But if it is true, it is absolutely disgusting, and he belongs in the Democratic Party if what was alleged is true.
Vince, your thoughts?
I think that anybody accused of something like this deserves the right, first of all, to mount a defense.
Absolutely.
This is America. You have a right to defend yourself. We now know that he's talking defamation suits. That will be useful in terms of finding out in public what happened if they can go to discovery, but not in time for an election. So I think both the Republican Party and Roy Moore need to reckon very quickly with what the next steps are.
Is it peculiar to you that, well, first of all, I think that the point about innocent until proved otherwise should still hold in our even our modern culture. But does it strike you as, well, passing strange, if I may use the expression, in pertaining to a Senate seat in Alabama, that it's coming at this juncture in the campaign, and this is a man who's run for office numerous times, has been in the public eye in Alabama forever, and suddenly the Post finds 4 folks?
Well, it's funny. I would have actually been even more suspicious of it if it had happened before the Republican primary. And I don't know why that is. I'm just that just was my gut.
That's your personal preference.
Yeah.
The dirt should come during the primaries.
But when you get down there and you read the woman's explanations for why she didn't come out before now, and her, like I said, her descriptions, the details of things, I found it chillingly believable. And Vince, you and Vince are of course exactly right. He should, if he wants to defend himself, I believe that everybody is innocent until proved guilty. But it just seems strange to me why this woman would, under her real name, would come out and draw this level of scrutiny to her own life. And she's apparently not a political hack of any sort. No. But very sad stuff. Very, very ugly and sad stuff.
Charlie Hurt, Vince Coglianese, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lou.